it's not on the committee.
Oh, that's
So we are missing him.
Okay, we're good.
We have the full committee.
All right, first we will go to solid waste. That is 116, Fund 116, which is, you've got a tab there. Send on Fund 116.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah,
No,
no,
I'm alive.
no, that's fine. If y'all want to do it that way, that's fine. All right, so the motion's been made to send forward all of Solid Waste Sanitation Fund 116, seconded by Mr. Alves. It's now open for discussion. And I'll give y'all a minute because there are a few pages here. So.
The work that we had discussed in, as far as pouring those pads, is that something that was in, just in his budget? He was trying to do a few at a time, right? So,
I believe he was doing that at 55732 799, if I'm not mistaken.
other capital outlay, you know, that would be it.
We said you do some this year and the rest on next year.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
All right, does anyone have any questions? Do you need some more time? Okay.
Feel pretty helpful thing.
All right, all in favor of moving Solid Waste Sanitation Fund number 116 forward for calculation purposes as is, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. That takes us to the Highway Fund, Fund 131. Mr. Buchanan, so you told us that he is working on this one. Do you have any updates for us?
I had a chance to review it, but I can try to give it a quick glance over as we sit here.
It's okay with me, I'm gonna let him review that for just a second. Because I don't wanna get this one on the floor if there's some major edit or change.
Yes, sir. All right. Does that matter? Don't matter to me if it don't.
Maybe I missed
You
turning
made
it
it up,
on.
Liz.
It shouldn't be red, maybe I just missed turning it on, just try and punch the button, no, it's red. Let me have it.
Oh, that's green.
I may have missed it because we were talking about getting me a patch for combat. Combat patch.
Chairman, just glancing through here, I do see several reductions, but this is a hand-done one, so it does not obviously have my formulas as the one in front of you would have. So without being able to see those totals, I can't tell you that this is sufficient or not to get back in line with where we need this to be. But just as a quick overview, I see some significant cuts, but I don't know that it will function as is even with those cuts.
In your opinion, as it's written, Eric, how significantly will we need to cut or raise funds? What's the figure that we need to have?
So, you know that from the general fund, when the year finishes, we end up actually in much better shape than what we project. We have a lot of conservative, you have a lot of different office holders. Sometimes it's actually hard to spend every dime of every line appropriately. So you see a nice swing, and the revenues are somewhat conservative, but really it's the expenditures where our swing happens. From looking at this budget, and there's nothing wrong with that, but what's appropriated has been used. And to have him tell it, the state of the roads requires that. So I say that to say, if you appropriate it, it's going to be spent. And so following that logic, a lot. You have a 2.7, almost a 2.8 expenditures over revenue deficit. And subsequently, that runs us to a negative fund balance, which is not allowable. I think it would be irresponsible to have anything over last year's budget funded if you don't have the revenue to match it.
Common sense budgeting.
So if we cut $1 million, because it's basically almost $1 million increase he asked for over last year's appropriations, right?
Correct.
So a fair assessment would be, can you tell me if I'm summarizing this correctly, $1 million in spending cuts or revenue increases? Would that be fair?
Yeah.
To make it sustainable, at least for this year, passable? This year?
I'm thinking more like $1.2 million.
Okay, so 1.2 million in either cuts or revenue increases in the bottom line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because even what we did last year was not sustainable if it's truly spent to its entirety. And it appears that that's going to be, the condition of the roads that it will require it to be. And so, yeah, we need to at least get back to that point, if not even maybe a little bit to the other direction.
So if we get through line by line, you said we can cut expenditures, we can't decrease revenue. But expenditures that are allocated through employee pay scale increases for years of service, health insurance, those things, we really can't mess with that. Those are pretty static.
The highway department's main investment is revenue specific. Historically, I've never seen anybody cut out jobs. The benefits have to be sufficient to accommodate the jobs that are approved. You can't have a salary and not have appropriate Social Security, Medicare, TCRS, so forth and so on. So there was always some conversation about how many positions some of those were representing. It looks like there was a couple in this proposal that he has self-adjusted.
He asked for what, 5 new employees?
Correct. I think he asked for
That's
Two
for mechanic,
drivers
2
and a
truck
mechanic.
drivers, and 2,
temporary personnel.
2 part-time.
Yeah.
You know, something that came up in the meeting last night, I don't know what bearing that would have on any of this, but, we've got 2 roads up there, we're gonna do a detour with the bridge. We've had several people talking about North Bluff Road, and the other road is gonna have to have some attention, so how are we gonna get that done?
It's a
I
very
haven't
good
had a
point.
chance to talk to Danny, but, there is some money for bridge improvements, and I don't know if it'd be a stretch to say we could improve those roads, because we're gonna do the bridge or whatever,
vehicle at the same time, we could be in trouble.
It's always been a problem there, that same area.
Hey, Eric. Yes.
On line, let's see. On 620000405, asphalt liquid. Does that include the $3.5 million that he received from the state to do paving?
No,
So,
no, the state aid money is in 68,000. And the only thing you're gonna see in 68,000 is the actual roads that were completed. Some of those numbers that were thrown around are monies that the state has for him, if approved, to do said projects. But what you're gonna see reflected in here, in the 23-24 column, is the roads that were actually done. And you'll see the matching.
2,129,000, is what you're talking about?
Exactly.
Okay.
can he use, that's only for state assisted roads? Or can he use it on regular county roads?
The state assisting the finances, but no, it's on a county road, from my understanding. I mean, that's getting into his operational questions, but it's my understanding that's on a county road that the state is gonna assist him on. But not the state is doing it themselves.
Instead of us going through this line by line, what I might suggest to the committee is, if a motion gets made to send this budget as it is forward, I'm going to vote no. We can't send it forward like this, and in the event that the committee were to vote no, it would just get sent back to him for revision anyway. Or someone could make a motion to just reject it and send it back, and then work on it when we work on the next draft. So, but it's the committee's will, whatever you wanna do, I'm not gonna vote for it to come out of committee like this, so.
I'll make that motion to reject.
Okay, so you're gonna move to reject the highway department's budget, you seconded. Is there any discussion about rejecting this budget? And right now might be a good time to document some points that we want to send to Mr. Jones, so that he kinda knows what our intent is.
And that figure is 1.2, that says going to be cut or.
A rough figure on the spot, that's kind of what I would need to see to feel a little more comfortable with it. And of course, that 1.2 is any combination of cutting or increasing revenue. So I think for him to adequately present back to you a budget that would satisfy him, he would have to know the flip side is there any revenue making up any of the difference, or is it purely from an expenditure cut perspective?
I don't know if it was see that from an expenditure cut perspective, then increase in revenues.
I guess what I was asking about, on that specific line item, he's giving money from the state, but he's also increasing it here.
And if you give me 1 second, I'll tell you how that line changed in his second proposal here.
And just for, argument's sake, a $1.2 million swing is 9.8 cents. So I had it written down as 14, but it's actually 9.8.
What line item were you, what,
He was on 62,405.
page 4?
And on that one, it looks like on the additional proposal here he submitted, there was a reduction of $50,000.
I mean, if he still got millions left over to pave roads, then he might want to come down there at 50,000. I mean, he still got 550,000 in there. We don't have to pave the entire road, we just need to do a bad section first.
He only has 3 roads he plans on paving in 24.
Well, also that's for a list of roads.
I think my recommendation would be just what you said, Commissioner Gibson, which would be to just ask him to reduce expenditures by $1.2 million. I think we're gonna get really in the weeds. We need to give him the opportunity to do that himself. We're gonna get really in the weeds if we start doing that. If he comes to us and says, this is the best I can do, and we're not willing to increase revenues to fund the budget, then we'll have to get in the weeds, but I think it'd be premature for us to do that just yet.
Yes, you make a motion second to reject the budget, yes.
Right, but you're trying to say that.
Do we wanna amend it to say rejected with an ask for 1.2 million reduction in expenditures?
I'll make that, change, make this, I mean, if or not, then I'll just make a change.
Just make a change in your motion. Would anybody object to that on the committee? Is that okay? Sarah, can you just add that into that motion?
Be much easier to do it.
Yes, it is much easier to do. It's not totally correct, but we can. All right, so the motion is to reject, the highway budget, Fund 131, and request $1.2 million in spending cuts from the budget. All right, any other discussion? Ms. Sarah?
Do we need to do that or ask him to try his best faith to reduce it and give him that goal to shoot at?
And that's what the motion
No,
does.
we're throwing out 1.2 before we'll look at it again. In reduction.
So you just don't like it being tied to that number?
No. That's just me. But you've got a motion made and second on the floor.
What would you prefer it to be?
Well, you know, he's elected to do his job, and if this, I know he's not padding his budget, I don't think that much. Give him the opportunity to go back and look through it again and present it. He only cut what out of it, Eric, the last time, 50,000, you said?
That was just one particular line. That was just a line that Mr. Palmer questioned me on, but there's several reductions.
What does it equal out to?
It's just a handwritten document, okay, I don't have it totaled up.
Did he say he was gonna reduce his labor, diesel fuel, or what is the reductions at?
I guess what it's asking, could you give us a list of what he's wanting to reduce?
You all want a copy of the budget that he submitted to me? That'd probably be quicker than me reading it to you. Thank you, sir. Probably 12, 15, yeah, the whole thing, it's hard. Okay, yes, please, thank you.
So even with the, as already proposed, I still don't see us having the cuts that are gonna be needed. If we're not looking at increasing revenues at all, if it's kind of just a non-conversation starter right now at this point, sure, I think the scope of this really isn't gonna change with the budget he's got submitted. But I think ultimately it would still.
You're saying you don't think he's cut 1.2?
I don't think we're anywhere close to that.
Well, and I think that's what Commissioner Alves, that's the point that he's making, is he's probably not padding it enough. You know,
Right.
and that's the point, is that he's not padding his budget, so if he's not padding it, he's asking for what he needs, he may not be able to find it, but the fact is, sometimes you just gotta make some cuts that you don't really wanna make, because that's a big swing.
And of course, he may come back to us and say, hey, how much do I need to cut?
According to the motion right now, he needs to cut it 1.2
I
million.
understand that, but I mean, I might just maybe need to go a little forward to.
So on the first, refresh me, we talked about so many pay scales. What kind of pay scale is he on?
He can buy one.
Okay.
He refused to do one.
So this include, this budget right here, does it include a COLA for his employees?
I believe when he presented, he said it was a 30 cent,
30 cents.
Increase on the hour.
And he gave $1 last year.
What does that look like, I guess we have to know, there's no percentages of what that looks like at this point, because we don't know what it varies per trade.
I think last meeting y'all said it would cost like 27,000 or something in total for his
The
raises.
30 cents on the hour comes up roughly, 2080 scale, I think you said 43, would come to $26,832. But that's assuming the 43 employees that he quoted, and if I'm not mistaken, I think when he was here, he said he had some vacancies. So that's not a locked-in number, but.
And, you know, I would remind the committee that in 22, 23, tools that he needs to do that. In my opinion, you know, this committee has given $2.8 million more dollars, allowed him to spend $2.8 million more dollars this budget year than he did the previous budget year. That's a pretty big investment by this committee and by the county. And I think it would be fair to say, you know, we'll give it to you this year, we'll give you that same $2.8 million this next year, right? Which he had the same expenditures. We allowed him to spend the exact same as he did this budget year. That's still a significant increase in expenditures, allowable expenditures for.
You have to remember a little bit of background on that though as well. When Mr. Bean had that position, he never asked for an increase.
Yeah.
So it's not really fair to say, he went from 5 to 7 to 8. You know, it was, that 5 was inherited.
And in fairness, to your point, Mayor, you know, and this would probably be Mr. Jones's point, it would be if I was him, it would be mine if I was him. That's why we're in the shape we're in, right? Because there was never any increases asked for.
You're right.
So those are fair points, I appreciate that.
Hey, Eric, on this capital outlay, the highway equipment and motor vehicles, is that separate from the ARPA funds he was given?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So he's
Nothing
wanting-
from ARPA is in 131, everything from ARPA is in 128.
So he's wanting 60,000 more in highway equipment and motor vehicles that he technically does have available.
I can't speak to the intent of the use, but all of ARPA funds are in 128, and this is definitely a separate line in its entirety.
We haven't spent all the ARPA yet either, right?
There's still, I think, a balance of about $220,000 ARPA funds for highway equipment.
That's what's left out of what we gave him, correct?
Correct.
Out of 370
Correct.
that he has to spend.
And he's already said he's not gonna buy a paper because he don't have the crew to run it.
That's
So
our,
he might be able to cut that out. And the equipment he had money to buy, he bought it after the snowstorm.
Well, I'm just thinking through this in my mind, so let's say, you know, we do need additional funding, that the expenditures are going to be $8 million plus to run this department well, if that's what he needs. If we can get the budget, sustainable for this year, passable for this year, and not having to adjust revenues, then maybe we can assess it next year, see what we can get done, this year on the roads, and with that additional funding. And, then reassess it next year or something, because I mean, if it takes that much to keep our county infrastructure well, I want us to have good county infrastructure. We just gotta figure out how to do it.
yeah.
So the data processing equipment went from 2,000 to 600. Estimated went down 100 for the 23, 24. Should the estimated 23-24 fiscal year column be changing in what we've got in our packet?
Yeah, he's got his budget, right?
So-
Oh, you're saying the 23-24. Okay, sorry.
It can, I mean, it always fluctuates. When we sent out these requests, you know, it was February first. When we got these back, it was hopefully late February, some a little later. So as more time passes, you can replace some of those estimates with more actuals, but obviously we're still not there at the end of the year yet.
Yeah.
And even after June 30th basis, you're still gonna have actual invoices coming in after the fact, so they can move. But if it's some of your larger ones, I really need to look and make sure that I agree.
So the truck drivers considered it.
Sugar, 142,000. Laborers cut in by 100,000.
Are you looking at 620000149?
Yeah, that's all I got. They won't like that, too.
67527 is what we got in what we had in our binder.
It looks like a final one, I'm sorry.
You did decrease temporary personnel. Increase overtime.
$635,000.
I just calculated where there's a difference and then added up.
That's what I'm doing, but only on page 2.
No.
So,
Great minds think
what'd you
alike.
get, 635?
634, 550 is what I got.
634,550. It's taking me a minute to get through it, I'm doing by line, so. A lot of numbers.
We're about halfway there.
So that's, you made that many cuts, that means 565,450 to get us to that 1.2 million.
We're essentially asking him to cut his budget by 13.5%.
565.
What I can ask. What'd you say your number was again?
634, 550.
I'm very close. I ignored the changes in 65,000. Trustees commission, something that I calculate, and I stand by my number.
Oh,
So
okay.
I disregard that one, but I'm very close to what you have.
I guess, well, maybe this is where we need to be at. We had all those years and nothing got turned in or after. Or was that one that is where we need to be?
565.
Look at about 5 cents, 4 cents.
And then one more time here, what you got?
For,
Mine varied from Mr. Gill just a little bit. I had around 625,000, but I disregarded one of the changes. And, also for the sake of time, I ignored some of the smaller ones, so.
634, 550. 550.
yeah, cut. That's down to about 4.6.
That's like 6 cents.
So 5 cents.
So 5 cents.
Rounded up 5 cents.
Bad thing about that is if we did that, that still doesn't make the fund sustainable long term. That fixes the problem for this year.
That's only what he's asking for now.
The both are the
Really?
same, but it's still taking on water.
Right, it's, I mean, because the deficit is 2.79. We cut, or if we add 1.2 to that in some way, either with revenues or expenses or a mix of the two, you're still 1.5 in the hole, if he spends all the money.
And you can see, it'll change, but you can see currently we're projecting that fund balance of almost 4.1 in 22-23 to be 2.5 in 23-24. So we can only do that one more year. We will be back having the same conversation next year.
Which ironically, we're actually having right now the same conversation we had last year.
Correct.
That same conversation would lead over to where's it coming from too.
Plus you're raising maintenance of debt to 4.5%.
You are, potentially would be, although, if that's what the highway needs to operate, I mean, nothing in that department is gonna get any cheaper in future years. probably would never look to be taking it back.
We went to COLA yet.
No. No, we went through, 116 and 131, and we still have the COLA to discuss,
And contributions.
and contributions.
Is this second draft that still including his 30 cents?
I don't think so, his labor lines have changed much other than truck drivers, and that's good. I would imagine it's been not hiring more,
He would have to answer that, but I would be of the same thought.
you know.
He might have done it, cause I just picked one out, like the foreman, that he went up 1344, and, you know, Mike, I don't know.
My suggestion to just as one member of the committee would be to stand by the motion that's been made, and Mr. Buchanan, you've heard all the thoughts and notes, and we'll have the minutes, you can share these thoughts. I mean, we have this, right, he's already made some cuts, and we just let him take another stab at it, maybe he can come back and see us and at the next draft. Cause I'm not even sure if we wanted to pass this version, I mean, it's not even in official capacity, like it's not plugged into a formula, I wouldn't feel comfortable passing that off. So,
If you want, I can use his numbers to present to you as the second draft to see if you would feel comfortable with it at that point. I don't know if you want me to plug these in, or if you want him to do something different for second draft purposes.
I really do think he needs to work a little bit more.
yeah, I do too.
But that bids us short, I'd like to call it for the question.
Yes, sir. So the question's been called for. The motion is to reject the budget and ask Mr. Jones, I believe the number we used was to find 1.2 million. And if we're going off of what was presented to us in this budget book, that we'll stand by that. This is a rough draft.
Right, he's
So-
halfway there.
Well, he's halfway there already.
Yeah.
Okay. Question's been called for. Ms. Sarah, we call roll, please. This is to reject this budget and send it back to the highway superintendent.
Danny Elvis,
Yes.
Robbie Palmer,
Yes.
Tom Kern,
Yes.
Nancy Barker,
Yes.
John Gibson,
Yes.
Jason Rhodes,
Yes.
and Josh McGinley.
Yes.
7 yes, motion carried.
Did that motion include the 1.2 million request?
Yes.
It does, yes. But of course, with the rough draft, the handwritten draft he sent us, he's already found what's the sentence for, roughly 1,000.
Halfway there.
632. All right, so, next on the list, we can move on to COLAs. Eric has given us a spreadsheet that has a few different options. And keep in mind that, Social Security this year will issue a 3.2%, COLA based on the formula that they use to predict it.
You recall the COLA amount we did last year?
I'm sorry,
What we did last year was at 4.
4%, yeah.
Social Security last year was, it was not, it was higher.
What did you show, what you missing? COLA?
Yeah, and I have it right here. Not accusing anybody, but
There's one spare. Oh, thank you.
I think that's it.
Okay, so,
My phone's there, like you said.
5.9 last year. See, January of 2023, it was 8.7. Is that correct, Mr. Gibson? I may be looking at this.
So I'm looking at something, I've seen conflicting things here.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Social Security cost of living website. I'm looking at the Social Security website.
Yeah, SSA.gov, tax rate, social security changes, employee 7.65 in 2021.
Yeah, that's a different number. Automatic cost of living adjustments, since 1975. And in, just as a point of reference, let's go to 2020, 1.6% in 2020, 1.3 in 2021, 5.9 in 2022, 8.7 in 2023, and then it's projected in January 2024 to go to 3.2. Everybody wants to check my numbers on that. I think I've got the right thing.
I understand the same thing you're saying. The only comment I would make is that this is on a calendar basis. Keep in mind, we're on a fiscal basis, so we're always gonna be 1 year behind catching up to them.
But nonetheless, last year, beginning in January 2023, it was 8.7.
I know it's been stated before, but I think it's important just to reiterate one more time that this wouldn't be a raise, this is essentially increasing the dollar value, or the value of the dollar, trying to keep up with what the inflation rate is. It's almost, I almost think if we don't do some form of COLA, you're asking your employees to take a pay cut.
Absolutely correct.
Well, it just creates a bigger problem moving forward because the pay scale gets behind.
Right.
You don't keep it on track with inflation, that's exactly what happens, and we've proven that in years past.
We just proved it this morning.
So, while we may have to reevaluate it on the final draft, I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and proceed with calculation purposes of 3.2.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made to calculate a 3.2% COLA increase, which would apply to all of those on the county pay scale. It would not include the highway department because they're not on pay scale. Okay, is there a second? Mr. Palmer seconded it, and so we'll open it for discussion.
Just a further point of clarification, when you were asking originally what the COLA was, it was to exclude the sheriff's department in light of their changes. So the numbers you have in front of you do not reflect any sheriff's department employees. This would just be the other general fund as well as solid waste. So I just wanna make sure that is what you want me to
Does that
do.
include part-time?
It does include part-time.
So this is part-time and full-time, excluding the sheriff's department and the highway.
Correct.
Part-time, solid waste also in the dirt.
It is. That's not reflected in these numbers, but that is the intent to follow. I did not have time to work yet the solid waste one, which intent would be to do the same exact thing for those folks as well. And due to the condition of that fund, there's really no strain on that fund to accommodate that.
All right, well, anybody else have any questions about an understanding, for those watching at home, this is just a calculated for the next budget draft, so this is not a final vote yet.
I don't know how the committee would feel about this. Given the conversation we had this morning with the sheriff's office and what we agreed to put in this second draft and the large investment we're making there, and considering that inflation, when we gave a 4% COLA last year, that I would imagine was well below the actual rate of inflation. And when you look at the actual cost in terms of pennies, on what it would cost us, I would like us to, how would the committee feel about a 5% versus 3.2 to help try to catch up a little bit, in some of the other areas of the county?
And I think you could make that as an amendment if you'd like to.
Yeah, I would like to make an amendment to make it a 5% versus 3.2.
Okay, there there's an amendment on the floor to amend 3.2% increase to 5% increase. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Tom. There's a second on that amendment, so it's now open for discussion.
Did I hear the sheriff say that his, what he asked for included a COLA?
Well, I'll say this, I would not support giving 5% on top of it.
Well, no, but that wasn't, I think that's what he said.
Now, from what I remember, that was without a COLA, but he did say that if they were to go on that pay scale, that he would be okay not applying the COLA to him, which means that he would essentially be creating a new pay scale.
Correct.
But because of the jump, he would be okay not being included for COLA purposes.
That's how I remember it as well.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, what was the value generated on a penny again?
$122,222 and what's this?
That's close. $122,262.53.
262. Okay, thank you. 122,262.
Here we go.
53. All right, any other discussion about the amendment itself? Ms. Sarah, will you call the roll on the amendment?
Joshua Gilmore,
Yes.
Robbie Palmer,
Yes.
Danny Elvis,
Yes.
John Gibson,
Yes.
Nancy Barker,
Yes.
Jason Roach,
Yes.
Tom Kern.
Yes.
7 yes, motion carries.
Okay, we're back to the original motion, which is to calculate an increase, except amended, it's a 5% increase. Does anybody have any further discussion on the original motion? Seeing none, Ms. Sarah, will you call the roll, please?
Nancy Barker,
Yes.
Jason Roach,
Yes.
John Gibson,
Yes.
Danny Elvis,
Yes.
Tom Kern,
Yes.
Joshua Gilmore,
Yes.
Robbie Palmer.
Yes.
7 yes, motion carries.
Now we're moving on to contributions. Everybody ready to go there?
Yes, sir, let's speak on the contribution.
Sure.
I just wanna let the community know, I had one more contribution that came to me. They're not gonna ask for it this year, but the Blue Scout Food Pantry would like to make sure the committee knows that they're coming up on a year of operation in July. They just set their budget for this year, this past Saturday, so next year they'll wanna be coming, to request but they asked me to bring it to the community's attention and just remember them and encourage the community to help keep supporting them in what they do. So, and I think, and she made it very plain that she wants to do it the right way. She wants to show the community that they are sustainable and viable before they ask for anything. So I thought that was very honorable of them to do that, and just wanted to pass that on.
All right, so y'all just wanna start at the top with fire prevention?
Just to let the committee know, I did reach out to, some folks in Sigourneyville regarding, the fire fire coverage at Fifth Bend. And, unfortunately, wasn't able to get them here today. But they are interested in potentially, helping with that. I wanted to run it by Nancy, you may have some insight on this, on any requirements that the industrial board has, to cover, to ensure that we have adequate fire coverage of the industrial park. You know, any special stipulations the fire department needs in order to do that.
I think, and they said they weren't allowed to give out that information, but I think if they would meet with the executive committee of the industrial board and let them know which companies they're having an issue with, and maybe getting the false alarms, if they can eliminate some of the stuff that they're, some of the calls that they're having to make. And then I guess my other thing is this, you know, if this municipality decides that they wanna raise rates on something, what's gonna stop all the others? And that's my biggest concern, because, you know, all of them have a fire department, all of them give assistance, so, I think that we need to know what the issue is, because I think the jump that they made, the $14,000, from $1,100 to $14,000 is quite a jump.
Some of the cost per call, that was brought up about how the cost per calls have doubled, that they have doubled, but their volume of calls got cut in half, so your cost per call then doubles. And some of the fixed costs like pumps and stuff like that, those would be fixed regardless if they're covering Fifth Bend or just covering municipality. So there's a lot of, I don't agree with their representation or calculation of how they're getting that true cost.
And that was what the industrial board asked them, and most of it they just refused to answer. So I guess actually we found out more here than we found out the industrial board. The other thing, you know, if they go down there, I mean, I know they're gonna use gas to go back and forth, but they're replenishing materials. Well, if you go down there and there's no fire and you don't use anything, you don't have any materials to replenish.
Right.
A lot of that cost per call, John, came from, they moved up to a minimum of 4 hours per call at time and a half. And it used to be lower than that, so, I mean, that kicked it up some.
Right, but that was a management decision made by the.
Right. I agree, but I'm just telling you.
Right.
And I'm not supporting their position at all, and not supporting it, but, to answer your question, Josh, about what the qualifications should be, the reason Churchill is the one that's primarily involved is they have ready access to their entire fire department all the time. Because their fire department's made up of municipal workers that have to go when that call comes out. So they have more full-time people available on short notice than Sir Lawrenceville would. I'm not saying Sir Lawrenceville couldn't do it, it's just that's kind of why the industrial board leaned to Churchill.
And that makes sense, I mean, it doesn't make a difference to me who does it, if another department can do it for a better rate.
Yeah.
Then.
Well, the other concern we've got too is, you know, we built a building for them, put the fire truck in. Now we found out the fire truck's been tore up for 3 years.
Yeah.
So what good is it doing for it sitting down there in our building if it's not even useful?
Well, I have high hopes that at least one, if not all, of the potential industries that are coming in there have expressed interest in helping with public safety. I don't have figures or how that's gonna be ironed out. Nancy may wanna make a comment on that, but we've talked to all of them about the need for contributions toward public safety.
Josh, who expressed interest from Scorpio as far as fire chief,
Yeah.
what, just so we know which way to.
Absolutely, so I talked to Shane Suthers and I talked to Randy Cotter, who's on the BMA.
Just so we have a point of contact if we
Absolutely.
get left over, need to fill it.
Yeah, reach out to him, Randy, I had mentioned to him about coming this morning and he had a staff meeting, so he wasn't able to, but anyway, because they actually have a fire station right outside of, the industrial park there, and it's in Salonisville, the industrial park is in that area at least, so I thought it might make
was 16 calls to fix week. And the year prior to that, there were 9 calls, the year prior to that, there were 10 calls. But this is based off what they gave us. So they're saying those 10, for 2021 to 22, those 10 calls cost $11,334, the next year $16,955, and then last year, to the current year, $41,308. So it's not the cost of those calls went up, and I agree with what Mayor's saying, they did go up, but they went up based off, decisions that the Churchill BMA made, not that the commission made, and now they're wanting us to put this bill for, I'll hold that comment. But yeah, I just think we're getting some of the bill for a, management decision that was made that might not be the best one that can be done to carry the service.
Well put, thank you.
So are we looking to, for Mr. Chairman, do you want to, take a vote on the ones that were not, that have no changes? Do you want to just roll those together and then just vote on the ones that did have requests individually?
I mean, I'm okay with that suggestion. But that's up to the committee. How do y'all feel about doing that? Just rolling everything together that had no extra requests. Let's just do fire department as a
Right.
chunk though. Or would you prefer?
You could make a motion, you could make a motion to just leave them all the same as last year, and then if any of us wanna make an amendment to increase one of them, we can handle it that way too, it doesn't matter, it's just procedural. However you do it.
Not the same either way.
Yeah. Roll this fine.
What was the additional request for 30,000 from standalone? What was their rationale?
They were offering first responder, and I think there's another one that's asking for that. I'm not sure on that, but
Churchill volunteer,
Persia. Persia asked for 50,000 for something.
standing
Yeah.
out.
Building.
Stanley does offer, I think, correct me on this anybody, but they offer, first responders, I don't know. And they're not, they say they're the only one doing it right now, fire department wise.
I think there's one more.
Mount Carmel is.
Mount Carmel part.
But they're, any calls they go on to the city first.
Jeff, was there another one you mentioned? That's first responder?
Churchill Rescue Squad is, and then like Hawkins County wants to get the contract agreed upon, Hawkins County Rescue Squad's gonna be doing it.
So, okay. I do have a question for you pertaining to the rescue squad. For the fire prevention, would you all like to take them one at a time, or would you all like to group together those that aren't asking for any increases? How would you like to do that?
I make a motion, the ones that haven't asked for an increase, I vote that we send those on.
Okay, there's been a motion to send forward fire prevention contributions with no increases. Seconded by Mr. Gibson, so let's identify which ones those are. Firemen Association, Bulls Gap Volunteer Fire Department, Carter's Valley, Churchill Volunteer Fire Department, not including the first responders at 15. So that there's two different funds for them. Clinch Valley, Lakeview Fire Department, Mount Carmel Volunteer Fire Department, Rogersville Volunteer Fire Department, Rogersville, and Sherborne. Okay, so that's the motion that's on the floor. Does anybody have any discussion or questions about any of those?
Did you skip over Goshen Valley?
I think they
They
came and
asked for that one time.
Oh, okay.
Increase for that.
Okay.
Gas.
I think we are funded that.
Yeah, we
right?
already, yeah, we already funded.
So we could include Goshen Valley in that, so I just have written in the 6,500 in the
Well, Goshen Valley, we
already funded what?
didn't fund
The tank.
Goshen Valley, we capped it from public safety.
You
ask the budget committee to look at it.
The 6,500 for the gas tank and
But you want that funded yet?
So it came out of
Public
public safety.
safety asked budget to look at it.
Okay.
I'll do a resolution on that this month for next for the highway, so that will be done before this year.
So you don't, so we don't want to
Just
include that.
don't include it in the budget, I'll get a resolution in to take care of it in May before, where we can already start on that, because I think that was the intent of trying to get it going earlier.
So, if nobody else has any discussion, I have a couple of questions I want to ask. We pulled some data on a couple of volunteer fire departments that I've got some concerns on. And I'd like to discuss them, one being Clinch Valley. And it's actually in the community where I work, and I had the opportunity to serve some of the folks that lead that volunteer fire department. But what I've seen is they're not responding a whole lot. And I don't wanna say that I don't wanna fund them, but I'd like to ask the question of them. What can we do to help them as they get calls, respond appropriately, given the money that we invested in that community? And talking to some other folks that work in emergency services, they say there could be a communications issue. I know there was a helicopter that landed in Clinch due to there was a helicopter that was supposed to land in Clinch due to a car wreck not too long ago. They weren't able to access the LZ, and they ended up having to take that patient across the mountain in an ambulance. The patient, I found out, was okay. There was another time that a bird landed at the school there, and I don't know that any of the Clinch Valley Fire Department showed up to help set that LZ up. And if we're giving them, and this doesn't go just for Clinch Valley, this goes for any fire department, if we're funding them through charitable contributions, it'd be nice to know that they're responding to calls.
The cost in my office too, of manpower and equipment to mitigate that problem. Now there's a new lock over there that every ambulance has keys in. Yes. Just point of clarity on.
For the record, the principal of the school said you can't unlock it, cut it.
And that's what we would do.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the ambulance didn't have their bolt cutters over there to put them in.
But that hasn't been fixed.
Yeah.
Did that get their financials in this year for Clinch Valley?
So, I looked back, I might have overlooked them, I saw a placeholder for them.
Did you mean this year is in 23-24, or is it the future budget?
For the future
No,
budget.
for 23-24, yes, they did finally turn their stuff in and get their contribution. In 24-25, there's no communication from them.
I commonly receive calls from ISO as well, which is a rating service that they have no contact with them. I give them the information that I have and don't ever hear anything back from them.
Is it still operating? As far as
Officially, they are in operation. I go by and see them there sometimes. I do know that they're gonna set up a bathroom area and a place where folks can get some food for the Clinch Valley, yard sale that's coming up. They put that on their marquee, so they're active in the building.
Did they get their training completed at one time, or they didn't have, they weren't in compliance with the state with the training?
We don't get any of that in our office, so I'm not sure what the training levels are.
Do they respond to any calls?
There are a lot that they don't. There's a lot that, it's a combination of Lakeview, Rogersville, and Stanley Valley that respond over to take care of those calls. And outside of county agencies coming, from Trekway and Panther Creek.
We had to drop the cardiac response program because we couldn't get a response to update the license or anything from it, so we suspended the cardiac response program.
So they no longer have cardiac response.
I had no response, so we were done. He wanted a letter, and I've not heard anything.
My concern
According to our
is
next direction, yes.
those taxpayers pay the same amount of money and don't get a full assignment from, they don't always get as many resources as what over here may get.
Well, and other departments are having to mitigate, and they're not getting extra money for doing it.
Spending a tremendous amount of fuel and manpower.
Very little.
Lynn may can speak on the answering calls more on precise percentages, but.
they respond to very little calls that we send them to. As far as the actual data, I don't have it in front of me. I think the data that Commissioner Roach has is a couple months old.
It is.
I could refresh that. It's actually got to the point that regardless of what the call type is, we assign another fire department with them. So there's 2 fire departments going to a call across the mountain, regardless of what it is.
So, just for reference, and this is old, from October the 8th until January 17th, there's a list of calls. 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 calls total. They responded to 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's year to date?
No, that's between October the 8th and January the 17th. And, we appreciate what they're doing. Obviously, you know, they're there to provide a service. It's just if we're going to contribute this money, they need to provide that service. And
Well, it's
so-
not fair to the other departments that are really using that money to their advantage.
And furthermore, with that question, I have received concerns about that department specifically, but I've not looked into any other department.
Right.
Off the top of your head, just looking at the data, Director Campbell, are there other departments that don't respond when they're called out, or do they typically go?
We occasionally have a failed response from other departments, but you have to remember they're volunteer. When you look at the ratio of what they answer versus what a failed response is, no, it's nowhere near it.
So, I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
just wanna ask, do we know what their last year, ending fund balance was?
They didn't say anything.
What about the year before? What was the last, I guess, information we have?
I can go pull last year's from you, for you, but I don't have it with me right now.
As a chair, I can't really make this motion, but I would request that if we're gonna pass this motion as we have it, that we would pull Clinch Valley from that.
I make the motion to amend to exclude Clinch Valley Fire Department.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Gillum, thank you, Mr. Palmer. Any further discussion on that amendment to pull Clinch Valley? And this is not permanent, this is for draft purposes, but hopefully we can get some more information from them.
In its entirety?
The entire contribution, yes, for now.
Right.
Jamie's got something that he needs to.
So I asked the mayor if he wanted me to address this on my understanding how this works if that department defaults. Now, if we fail to fund them, we don't have a legal route to like pull their ability to be a fire department. So it has to become to the point where they default, then we address that as a county commission on how we cover that area.
So,
And if they do default, they lose that building.
That's all discussions we have, but that's how it would work if they're not funded. I'm sure we are their major stream of income, so, and I know this is just for draft purposes, but if that's not resolved, that's how that would trickle.
and I understand, and so I want to make this clear too, from my point of view, I have no interest in watching Clinch Valley Fire Department default. We need that fire department in the
Right.
community, that's Nancy's district, but I work there and I serve those kids. We need that fire department to operate, so I don't want to pull any funding from them, but I do think we need to ask some more questions of them before we do.
I agree.
Move
That
forward.
is completely unacceptable if only respond to 4 out of 17 calls.
Between October 8th and January 17th, that's true.
It's almost like they're choosing which calls they wanna respond to.
And like I say, there may be more to the story, this is not to throw off on the department, I'd just like to get some more information from them.
They've been struggling for probably, at least 4 or 5 years.
But if they're not communicating with anybody at all. I mean,
They're volunteers.
Lynn, when you dispatch another fire department to cover that area, if you get a call, do they respond?
No, not usually.
So essentially, we don't have any response.
In order to get emergency response to Clinch Valley, essentially, anytime there's an emergency, somebody's crossing a mountain.
Yes.
The other
If you're talking about the other departments, yes, they do.
So the other departments will respond if that.
Yeah, we pull Rogersville across the mountain often. And then depending on what the call type is, we may pull Treadway from Hancock County, cause they can shoot straight up Clinch Valley, or we'll pull Kyle's Ford, Panther Creek from Hancock County.
And in terms of rescue squad coverage, there is a unit that's stationed in the Clinch area for that purpose, so that they don't have to cross the mountain. But, outside of that, that's the only emergency response in Clinch, in the Edson area, is that one Hawkins County Rescue Squad truck right now that we know, because the Clinch Valley Fire Department doesn't typically respond.
I can bring you actual data back if y'all want.
That'd be helpful if you can.
You want it on the fiscal year or year to date?
Probably the chief sitting here also.
Right.
Answer some questions.
Answer some tough questions, because I thought about this on and on. I mean, I don't wanna give them the same thing that, say Striggersville or Stanley Valley or Persia, or, the ones that really roll out every time are getting the same thing that a fire department that's not responding gets.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's fair that way, and I also don't think it's fair for, let's take for instance, Striggersville, to spend the gas and the time to get across the mountain, when Clinch should have been there anyway.
But as you said, what's the recourse? I've had a few calls where I've called over there, and addressed some issues. But, all I could do was make the request if what was going on not continue to go on. I think their volunteer staff is down to maybe, 3 or 4? They're using junior firemen, which I don't think is legal. So what's our recourse?
They're
How-
won't answer the question. They're using what?
Junior firemen.
Oh, well, let me say, turn out here, we just send them there.
12.
Jesus.
That's,
Yeah, we treated them all the same.
So how do you reorganize the fire department, I guess is what I'm trying to figure out.
That's gonna be the key, to find somebody over there to ride herd on it.
That's the best solution there, is if you can find someone to manage that department and pull it back up.
Well, and for the sake of this discussion, we have no evidence of any kind right now. We don't wanna assume that they're not doing it because they don't want to. We just need to find some more information. So I don't wanna throw off on anybody that's leading that fire department or that's involved in the fire department. We just need to ask some more questions. All right, so the amendment is to withdraw, Clinch Valley Volunteer Fire Department from this draft for calculation purposes. That's the amendment. Ms. Sarah, is there any other discussion? Ms. Sarah, will you call the roll on that amendment, please?
Jason Roach,
Yes.
Joshua Gillum,
Yes.
Tom Kern,
Yes.
John Gibson,
Yes.
Nancy Barker,
Yes.
Danny Alves,
no.
and Robbie Palmer.
Yes.
6 yes, 1 no, motion carries.
So that was the motion to exclude Clinch Valley?
Clinch Valley. All right, so that puts us back on the original resolution to fund everyone that did not have an increase in request at their previous year's level, excluding now Clinch Valley, due to the amendment. Any other discussion on that motion? Seeing none, Ms. Sarah, can you call the roll?
Tom Kern,
Yes.
Jason Roach,
Yes.
Robbie Palmer,
Yes.
Joshua Gillum,
Yes.
John Gibson,
Yes.
Danny Alves,
Yes.
Nancy Barker.
Yes.
7 yes, motion carries.
Okay, so now we will need to speak to, the first one on the list would be the Churchill Volunteer Fire Department as a first responder to Phipps Bend. They've got a $30,000 request for an increase.
I don't think, they didn't say specifically what, so we're looking at 2. I thought they were
Actually, they're requesting, is it a 30,000 increase?
Yes.
So a total of 50.
Yes.
That's correct, yeah. So amount of request here, that's right, they had it, there was a typo in there that I was trying to figure out. So it's 50,000 total that they requested, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I didn't write that correctly.
decided to back out of that contract because, I know that was even tossed out. They let us know they could walk in 6 months. Would mutual aid still apply in that case with Churchill?
Typically, mutual aid, they send one engine company, due to their pay situation. Will could answer that more in depth, but that's typically what we see is, they send a limited amount of resources. We're thankful for what they said, but usually it's a limited amount, just because they can pull everything from the city and from Fishman.
I think the thing that we need to look at, they not only asked for the 30,000, but they asked for a percentage increase every year. It's not just gonna be a 30,000 and done, it's gonna be a percentage increase also.
And was this did they say if we don't approve this, that they're going to pull out?
No, they said they'd have to rethink what they were doing.
And we're looking at seeing expansion at the industrial park over the next year or 2 years, which one would think that would increase call volume.
Well, we don't want to knee jerk and end up leaving us without fire coverage. Right? We can't go on a wing and a prayer of Rogersville or Stanley Valley stepping in. We have to deal with the facts that we have right now, which is that Churchill does cover it. So I don't want us to, I don't want to have to pay extra money either, but I also, more importantly, want the industries to be protected up there in the event that something catastrophic happens. And, keep a good working relationship with them in the meantime. So,
We can pull this for draft purposes and then regroup with them and see exactly what their plan would be when they're not funded.
okay.
I mean, that's just a suggestion.
Yeah, I think that's good. I just don't want to send the wrong message. I want to maintain communications with them, right? But if we could, that may be, I'll make the motion, how about this? I'll make the motion, that we fund them at the same level as previous years, so $20,000 for the second draft purposes, until we can get more information from Churchill or other departments that may want to fill that gap.
Okay, so the motion's been made to fund Churchill Volunteer Fire Department as first responder to Gibbs Bend Industrial Park at $20,000 the previous year's allocation, pending further information. Seconded by Mr. Palmer. Any further discussion?
One thing to pin that information that we're getting to, just want to try to find out how that would affect the ISO rating, if at all. How that would affect the ISO rating if they decide to break that contract and pull out. Because that could be impactful too for the industrial work.
I would suggest the other information we need to get is also input from the other departments that might want to cover it.
For sure.
They should be involved with this discussion.
Okay. If there are no other questions, Ms. Sarah, we call the roll on that motion, please.
Danny Ellis,
And this motion is particular what?
To fund the Churchill Volunteer Fire Department as the first responder to Gibbs Bend with the previous year's allocation, so $20,000.
Yes.
Joshua Gillum,
Yes.
Jason Roach,
Yes.
Nancy Barker,
Yes.
Tom Kern,
Yes.
John Gibson,
Yes.
and Robbie Palmer.
Yes.
7 yes, motion carries.
So that would take us to Persia.
They want 50,000?
They're going to be 50,000 more.
And I've got one time there, why else?
Yep, one time for a building. One time for a building.
In years past, we've always given $4,000 one time.
For buildings?
Yes, sir. And I think that's what we did for Main Side also.
They also didn't get that request in on time, so I mean, there was no official request from them
Is this for
until they
building,
sat down
Yeah.
and asked for it.
is this for building repairs, a new building?
New building.
New building.
Yeah,
They're wanting to add a 48 by 48 on the back side of their current building for room for expansion for other equipment.
Second district.
So they're asking for a total contribution of 80 this year.
Yes.
Sure, I'll make a motion, we go ahead and send that through at $30,000.
Okay, the
I'll
motion,
second.
motion's been made and seconded to forward the request at $30,000.
Gibson made the
Mr.
motion.
Gibson made the motion, Mr. Gillum seconded it.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none,
Mark, you said they did not get their request in.
Was not in at all until they showed up. That's correct, right, Gary?
I think it was Mr. Newton that came, wasn't it, Mayor?
Was.
Mr. Who?
Newton?
Yeah. Yeah, well, Eric's telling me he came in like one day prior.
Just,
Didn't make the book. And
I'd like to see us do the same like we just did with Church Hill, just, we'll get more information about, you know, expansion of our building for equipment, and then just maintain, and just move forward with the current contribution, and then get more information.
We'll get all of that back in the next draft.
Yeah. And I'll get in touch with Mr. Newton before the next draft.
Who is this for?
per the volunteer fire department.
Okay, and is it additional or same y'all funded before?
Same fund as last year.
Last year.
All right, Ms. Sarah, is there any other discussion? Ms. Sarah, will you call the roll?
Danny Ellis,
Yes.
John Gibson,
Yes.
Robbie Palmer,
Yes.
Joshua Gillum,
Yes.
Tom Kern,
Yes.
Jason Roach,
Yes.
and Nancy Barker.
Yes.
7 yes, motion carries.
All right, that takes us to Stanley Valley. They requested 60,000 this year, which is an increase of 30,000.
I will respectfully ask to increase it by at least probably $10,000. Because that department is really growing and they've taken it upon themselves to, answer these first responder calls.
Is that a motion, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll second that motion, that's actually the number that I was at too.
All right, so the motion's been made to increase Stanley Valley's contribution from 30 to 40,000, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Was I remember him talking about the medical response that they're doing, the 10,000 extra in funding, would that be a one-time ask, or would this just?
It's gonna go on.
They are very
As long as they're providing that service.
cardiac team first response.
So, my question then is, if other volunteer fire departments decide they want to become first responder certified, will they, as we move forward, will they receive the same $10,000 increase?
I think that would be a good motivation for them to do this.
If it's an expansion of services, I can see the justification of the cost.
Yeah.
And if
They
they
actually, because I know the city of Mount Carmel started doing that for a while, of having we're not doing it for a while, we're still doing it, but, sending people out on those calls, and you're talking about the cardiac situations, getting somebody there a lot quicker, get somebody trained, and I really believe it makes an impact on that individual's post-care, how they might survive that cardiac situation by the amount of time they get. So because it's an expansion of services, and not just fire services, if that's the precedent that we want to take with it, I think that would be a justified expense.
Is that at no charge to the patient? They're not billing patients for that,
Keep in
right?
mind, there is two sections, so there's a cardiac response and then a first response. Cardiac, they respond to all cardiac arrest, potential cardiac arrest and choking. First response, they respond to all priority medical calls.
You have to be EMR certified.
Right, they have to be state certified license, healthcare license for that.
Which is,
That could be a couple of levels to what you're discussing again.
do you know which one Stanley Valley's doing?
They do both. They actually are medical certified and.
Their only fire department that's doing that,
besides my department.
which is included in their,
There's other departments showing interest, but they don't have people right now, they're wanting classes. But it takes time to get people trained, and, I mean, you're looking another year out before possibly even get.
I would gladly withdraw my 10,000 if anyone wants to increase that.
Just leave it there and see how it works out.
They asked for 100, right? So,
Just additional information on Stanley Valley, it doesn't have really anything to do with the money, but we have the deed, quit claim deed prepared to give them that building with the stipulation we can still hold elections in there. And it reverts back to us if they stop using it for fire department purposes.
They tell you, those boys really went above and beyond out there, I see it all the time. Lynn can vouch for it.
all right, so the motion is to increase their request by 10,000. Any other discussion? Ms. Sarah, will you call the roll, please?
Tom Kern,
Yes.
Robbie Palmer,
yes.
Danny Ellis,
Yes.
John Gibson,
Yes.
Jason Roach,
Yes.
Nancy Barker,
Yes.
and Joshua Gillum.
Yes.
7 yes, motion carried.
Sure.
Break, please.
Yes, we can. All right, that concludes fire prevention. We're going to recess for a 10-minute break.